Kuba Sylvester Cielen, one of the top coaches in UK, working with hundreds of competitors over the years and a professional bodybuilder himself, a true training enthusiast and co-owner of one of the UK's top gyms, Ultraflex.
Sam Sulek is the prime example of someone who can make incredible progress with just training hard and eating probably a diet that just gives him an adequate amount of macronutrients to still see some growth. I change exercises as infrequently as possible. My goal is to get as strong as I physically can on the same exercises over as long as I physically can. If you're shitting at every single meal, you're eating all this food and you're not growing, we probably need to fix your digestion.
Hi Kuba, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. Very busy morning, so I'm fired up. I'm ready to go. I've got my tea in my little tea warmer, so I'm all warmed up and ready to get after it. So yeah, I'm glad to be here, and I can only apologise for it taking as long as it has. It's just sometimes I don't want to overcommit, and if I do overcommit, and I'm either not in the right headspace, or I know that I've got other commitments that I'm thinking about, I'm not going to give you my best version of my best self. So for me, it's like because I've got I already have like set podcasts that I commit to and everything else that I have to do. Not I have to do, but I've already committed to. I don't want to overstretch myself. And I think a big thing that a lot of athletes do and a lot of coaches do is they say yes to way too many things, and then they just get a little bit overstretched, and then the quality of the work always dips. And I have learned that the hard way 3-4 years ago, and I refuse to let that happen again. So I would rather wait and be able to give you my best self without even my work being affected or the podcast quality being affected, right?
So if you wait for something, then it's even sweeter. So I am really appreciate, especially that what you just said is just making me even happier that you picked just my podcast over the Better Views one, because like not only Polish fans are going to appreciate that, but all of the guys I'm sitting on the Professional Muscle Forum, and all of the guys out there are just requesting you a lot. As well as my Instagram like messages are always asking about Kuba. Like it was something that I am not can figure out myself. Like, yeah, ask Kuba. Yeah, brother. Yeah, I never tried to ask him. Okay, so like as always on my podcast, I am gonna prepare a scenario for you that's gonna be a new client of yours, and as always, we're gonna take my example, because this is just easier to just comprehend for me and for you probably. And we're gonna talk about bodybuilders today, just because if we're gonna try to like catch too many birds one time, like figure competitors, bikini chicks, like low weighted bodybuilders and heavyweight bodybuilders, it's just gonna be all messed up, because this is like totally different stories for all of those competitors. So let's say that I am like weighing around 102 kilos right now. So it's gonna be like 230, something like that, I believe. And I just finished my season, so I am well prepared for the rebound or whatever you wanted to get me through. And all of my lab works are great. I've obviously have them. I'm feeling great. I'm just wanted to push up the next phase. So it's going to be competing in a heavyweight class division, like open division, let's say next year, in the next 2 years, if you just not gonna like believe at my possibilities to make it happen in 1 year. So
see,
at the beginning of our conversation, I just wanted to know what would be the all the information you need me to prevent to you to just start it with all of even debating to cooperating with me.
Hugely sorry for the interruption, guys, but thanks to your comments, subscriptions, and thumbs up, I'm even able to create a podcast like you're watching right now. So if you can, please leave the subscription, comments, and simply a thumbs up. If you wanted to further support me, please use my code. And without further ado, let's get back to the podcast.
Oh man, it's a lot. So first, I always have people apply so I can actually see what they look like, what the goals are, and see if they're right fit, because the one thing I've mentioned already on the podcast is a lot of people say yes to too many people and overcommit. And I have definitely been the kind that has done that in the past, but I refuse to do that anymore because I get invested a lot into whoever I work with. And it's like a relationship, right? You get emotionally invested, and if that athlete really wants it, like, I am going to give my absolute best and my 100% to them. So it all depends on the athlete, the goals. And first is always a physique analysis. They will basically send me over the pictures. They will tell me a little bit about the history. And that's the first thing that I review, is the goals, what essentially they want and what they expect out of the relationship of us working together. That's the first step, right? And if someone really does want to jump on board and we do start working together, then it's going to be full pictures, full cycle history, diet, any diets they've done in the past, list of equipment they have available to them with the gym, food preferences, daily routine, any responsibilities that I need to be made aware of that may need to be structured to their plan. It's quite an extensive process where I want to know everything about you. I want to know where you train, what time you wake up, what time you go to sleep. I want to know everything that you do, so I get a full insight of what the type of person you are. And the more information I get from you, right, the more things I can pick apart as to not only give me the ability to create the right plan that's for you, but when I get to see how you live your day, when I get to see your routine, your diet, your preferences, or even your previous history of cycles, diet, etc., it already gives me an idea of what we can do to improve and where we can actually head to get better. I will always request some training clips as well, or if I don't know the client. If I do know the client, I will always have a little browse through their Instagram and see what they train like, what their preferences are like, what their execution is like. So the process is pretty much as extensive as it gets. I want to know as much about you as possible. I will want to see your blood work. I will want to see any echocardiograms that you've done, just to make sure that health is on track and on point as well. And look, if someone comes to me, right, and the blood pressure is amazing, lipids aren't skewed, they are around 30 years old, resting heart rate isn't elevated, there's no real symptoms, I would argue they're probably in a good state of health, where I'm not really going to be concerned about a CT scan just yet. When they get to about 35, then probably I will be pressing for that, when I'm like, right, you're getting a little bit older, the use of the drugs has probably been like 10, 15 years, maybe even 20. So we need to probably get these things tested. But even speaking to Meg's, my wife's brother, who is actually quite high up, is a doctor, is a very, very, very well educated man. And he always says, right, look, your blood work will reflect one thing, but most people that do have some underlying issues when it comes to heart health, etc., they will always get little signs, and they will always get like either shortness of breath or tightness in the chest. All these small little things are always telltale signs that you probably do need to get things tested. But there's also a lot of things that we can do to prevent things from happening. But essentially, when you first sign up, physique analysis, I analyse your entire setup, drugs, nutrition, routine, your job, stress levels, family, like anything that I need to be aware of to be able to structure your training or your nutrition, with how many meals you'll need, or even with what potentially we'll be able to do in terms of pushing you with the pharmacology or not, based off your life in general. Like, all of this needs to be taken into account. It's not just a case of send me pictures and tell me what you want. Like, that doesn't give any coach any feedback or information to work from. So it's yeah, there's a lot. I mean, I'd probably have to get like a sheet up where I kind of have all my kind of questions on there, but it's a lot, man. Yeah.
Okay, that's great to hear. To be honest, just because like nowadays, I believe that's like more frequently you see the coaches who are really interested in not only how much you can like afford, like for the drugs and for the GH probably, and like real like life situations that's probably gonna impact your physique the most, because the man who is like working the labor or the man who's working in front of desks are probably two different approaches to that to the person. So that's gonna be differentiate. So let's start from the beginning. So probably the roots of the bodybuilding or in sports in general are the training. So what would be the training during the off season for someone who are wanted to get over the weight class, like me, for example? Like I am just gonna give you a brief history of mine. I was always tends to lean into like lower volume, high intensity training. So we'll be probably around 12 to maximum 15, 16 sets in a peak, off season per session. So probably around 70 to maybe 80 sets total, like weekly. And it's in a matter of top pack of sets. But then like the latest training setup for me was changed, because I've cooperated with a coach who like lead me into a little bit more volume, a little bit more intensifier sets, like drop sets, myo reps and stuff like that. So I have the knowledge and the experience with a low volume and also in the high volume. And what would be the peak or questions you're gonna ask me to just set up the training perfectly for me? Or maybe it's irrelevant what I've done in the past and you trying to figure it out yourself for me.
I think it's completely relevant what you've done in the past, but you've got to understand one thing. When you work with me, we are going to work on your training execution and your training intensity. A lot of people think they're training hard. They will send me over clips and I'm like, you are not training hard. You think your perception of training hard is there because your execution isn't actually tight. And anyone can go into a machine and just do reps for sake of reps when they're flopping around, changing execution to make the lifts easier. And then my clients understand very quickly, when you fix execution, the number of sets that you are able to do and recover from starts to diminish quite fast. So your ability to recover from set volume is not going to be there because you're so much more accurate and you are getting so much more out of less. So the first thing that we'll do is strip back your training volume. Generally, what you've just mentioned there isn't low volume. That's what I would call moderate volume. That is not low volume. 12 to 15 working sets. 15 working sets per session, I would argue, is high volume for my standards. If you are doing 15 working sets per session to failure with good execution, that's high. That's pretty much high volume. So first and foremost, before I even consider looking at your training, there has to be a physique analysis. We are looking to add size, yes, but we also need to look at your physique and see which body parts respond easy and which do not, because this needs to be taken into consideration when it comes to program as a whole. I'm not going to give you the same amount of volume for your quads if your quads are a standard body part as I am going to give your arms if your arms are lacking. That's just common sense. However, this is a variable that is very often overlooked and missed, where most people just get a standard training plan and they just follow that with no context and no consideration for how that individual responds, how that individual moves, but also how that individual executes. So first, we will strip back your training volume, and where I would probably sit for someone like yourself that has already given me a reference point of what you are working with and what you can recover from, it would probably be around 12 working sets up to 13 working sets, depending on exercise selection and what equipment you have available to you per session. So 12 to 13 working sets per session is going to land you at around 60 to 64, 65 working sets per week, which is still a moderate to high amount of volume if you are training hard. Now look, guys, anyone listening to this, all training styles work. High volume works, low volume works. What matters the most is how you utilize that volume and what you do with it. High volume will work if you are not training to failure and you are keeping reps in the tank. If you are extremely skilled, if you are of a level where you know you can generate a crazy amount of force, you're relatively strong, you're relatively big, I promise you, your volume will need to come down. And I have noticed that with myself over the years. My volume started to come down and down every single year, and I'm growing more and more with less drugs. But I also see this with a number of clients that can train really hard. Dara, one of my clients, as an example, he has made probably the best gains he ever has this year, and his volume is set at around 52 working sets per week, with some weeks coming down to around 45 working sets, and that has come down from around 62 sets per week. So this gives you a lot of variance. And on the other hand, I do have other clients that need and can recover from 80 plus working sets per week. So this gives you a variability of how much training volume one can handle. And this will only be based off how someone responds and giving someone the time to be able to work with them and tweak the training, see what the response is like, and then modulate training volume up or down based off the feedback, the recovery, and the progress. If I have you set at 60 working sets per week, you are making incredible progress, you are feeling good, you're not having to deload too frequently, and you are stepping forward in musculature, and most importantly, you are able to progress your lifts. Why then would we need more training volume? It doesn't make sense. If you give me the feedback of, right, Kuba, I'm going to the gym, my joints are sore, I don't feel like I can progress lifts that well, my sleep is a little bit broken, I'm waking up frequently during the night, and my energy levels are pretty damn low, my joints are feeling creaky and my muscles feel flat, that is a sign of you doing too much volume. Therefore, the volume needs to come down. On the other hand, if you're giving me the feedback that you are feeling super fresh, lifts are progressing incredibly fast, you've got no issues with recovery, you're feeling great, guess what we'll do then? We may take consideration an increase in training volume, but it's not going to be adding 2 to 3 working sets and adding set extensions to every single set and every single workout. It would potentially be an addition of 1 single set per session across the week, which would only be 5 to 6 additional sets per week in total. Now, physique analysis is essential because every single person has body parts that respond better than others. And that sometimes is based on their ability to not only drive the stimulus into that muscle and maintain good connection, which will then lead to more mechanical tension, but also execution, the posture, how they walk, how they move. So we do need to assess all of these things and then base the training plan off that. Also, if you're a seasoned competitor, most competitors already have some niggles and things that we need to fix. And most of them will be fixed through training execution and stripping back the training and stripping back the training volume. And I see a lot of people talk about drugs, and we will talk about drugs, nutrition, and all of these things, right? Sam Sulek is the prime example of someone who can make incredible progress with just training fucking hard and eating probably a shit diet that just gives him an adequate amount of macronutrients to still see some growth, right? Yeah. So that is your prime example of how important training really is. It's by far the most important variable if you are looking to add size, because drugs are simple. You just need a sufficient amount of milligrams for you as an individual that you can tolerate, enough growth hormone, enough food to facilitate training performance and recovery. More food doesn't lead to more muscle. More food leads to more body fat gains. And you even see that in research when real case scenarios where I even had natural athletes recomp into the show by improving their training quality. And you can see that with so many top athletes that dial in the training. Sean Clarida being one of them. Dialed in his training volume, dialed in his training execution, and guess what's happened after all them years? Progress just skyrocketing. That is just, when you get someone that's a genetic freak and you make these tweaks, progress is insane. But also when you get someone with mediocre genetics who isn't making the progress that they could be, making those slight tweaks, and then later on the drugs and food on top, that is when the true magic happens. And that is when you can take someone from being a mediocre heavyweight to an exceptional super heavyweight bodybuilder over the course of 12 months. Anything else on training you want to know? I'm trying to be as direct but without being also specific as possible. If you want to get me some pictures over, I can give you some more references as to what I would do in terms of training split, which again, training split isn't as important as your distribution of training volume. So your training split could be 10 different things. It's not as important, again guys, listen to this, it's not as important as how you distribute the training volume that is needed for each body part per week to get your total weekly volume set.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that because I am making a faces right now, and sometimes it means that I am disagreeing with a person who I'm speaking with
If you
that
disagree,
day.
then hit me up.
But
We can have a
but no,
discussion
no,
about
I
this.
just want to clarify that I'm totally agreeing with you. But this is just me trying to hide from the sun that's trying to kill me right now because I live in front of forest. So actually, sometimes it's covered by the trees and sometimes it's just hitting my eyes so hard, and I don't have anything to cover my windows just yet because this is like a new house of ours. So we just
Congratulations.
don't have anyhow. Thank you, but we don't have anything to cover, and it's totally up on me. This is totally unprofessional.
Don't
But
worry.
sorry for that.
It's
When it comes to
in
when
UK we don't in UK we don't have that luxury. There's no sun in UK. We only get it like once a year, so it's fine.
so I just wanted to clarify that I'm just come unprepared, so I don't have any pictures of mine that I could probably show you, and I don't even know how to show it through the Zoom, to be honest. But let's says that not that says that's totally true. That my chests are shit, and
Yeah.
that is because of my very poor execution over the years, and probably the last 2 years of me competing are actually the years that I am finally can feel my chest working.
Do you have any pictures
Uh,
in your WhatsApp? Do you have any pictures in your WhatsApp?
uh,
Can you WhatsApp me some pictures?
that could be a really hard task because I am seriously not sure that I have anything here, but maybe something from, oh, this is like from some check-ins
Yeah,
of
ideal. All right.
mine. Okay, that could be
Yeah.
great. This is old pictures because
Oh,
right
this that'll
now,
work. That'll work.
yeah, because right now I am tiny.
No stress. Get me some good pictures over. We can do a physique
Oh,
assessment, and then we can do a split analysis and how we'd structure the training.
that's gonna be the greatest podcast that I've ever made, to be honest.
Well, listen, I want to do something that's going to be worth listening to people, so it makes sense that we do it properly, right?
I appreciate that. Even more knowing that I am stuck with the media, computers, and
No
everything
stress.
that's go within.
Oosh.
Even though I have
Let's
my
go.
YouTube channel for over
What's your body weight in these pictures?
hundreds, 510 kilos, maybe.
Fucking yes, nice,
I
nice.
don't really remember. This is from like
Right. Have you allowed me to
August
screen share that?
2025.
Beautiful. 2025 shots, yeah?
Yeah.
105. That's some good body weight, man. Okay. Right. Here we go. 1 second. Okay. You look good. You look good. I like it. Let me just get these shots up, and then we can design your training. See what we can do and see what we need to do. Beautiful.
Someone commented like just the other day that I am the mad genius because I've managed to have like 3 consultations each week with all of the top coaches
Okay, you can you
for
can you
free.
can see that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So that's your first picture, right? Your quarter turn. Beautiful, solid. Right. Can you see now your front relaxed?
Nope.
Right.
nothing's changed here.
Okay, there we go.
Oh
now.
yeah, yeah. But this is like a flat spread, yeah.
I like it. I like it. Front lat spread's looking good. Okay. Quads are good. Is there any damage in your calves? Do you feel like, or is it just
No, they are just looking
a little bit?
that's shitty. Like since I remember, but this is like only the front and back
Side
shots are
shots.
looking like that because side shots are
Yeah,
actually pretty decent with the
yeah,
cuts.
of course, yeah. Okay. Okay, let's analyze this properly. Okay. This already gives me a good idea on what we'll need to do with training. Now, questions from me. Any front double bicep shots? I don't think so.
No, I've never done double biceps or
Front double
most
biceps.
musculars, anything like that. I've only
Okay.
do like for my check-ins. I've always done like quarter turns
Okay.
and
So,
back double and back lat spread.
okay, so first thing that I'd have you do is for all my check-ins, all of my guys and girls, you will always pose every single picture, every single pose throughout your entire off-season, and you wouldn't just send me over pictures, you would send me a video of you posing as well. Okay? This thing gives me the ability to assess. In order for me to get your training right, which we can discuss your training off the back of these anyway, but for me to be able to analyze your physique and know proper physique analysis, I need to see you in every single pose. The main poses that are very important is your front double bicep, because the first pose they actually hit on when you get on stage. So front double bicep is what sets the tone and sets the stage. Now, based on some of these shots, I very much doubt your arms are going to be a priority. I mean, biceps are peaking, triceps are full. So we definitely don't need to do that. The only thing I would probably say now is just making sure that you are not putting any shots in your arms or shoulders, because that's one thing that I would probably look at and think, I'm not saying your arms are looking sus, but what I would probably say is we need to make sure that there's no visible lumps and bumps in any of your body parts, okay?
Yeah.
Now, is there any preferences for your training split? Is there anything that you are committed to in terms of training where we need to potentially stick to certain training days, or any commitments that I need to be aware of?
No. I can do anything you want.
Okay, right. The main areas that we need to bring up here is going to be chest, back, hamstrings. I think quads are actually pretty decent, especially with, I think, the structure of your quads, but they're not really a standout body part. However, when we compare your back, chest development in comparison to your quads, I think your quads and arms are pretty much up there, where they can appear to sit at maintenance volume. So I can probably assume that your arms and your quads respond pretty well to anything that you do, right?
Yeah, especially my legs are never been the problem of me because I have like a certain like time when my shoulders was fucked, and then I've trained my legs like 4 times a week, and I've done like 16 sets of just squats 4 times a week.
Yeah. So training split wise, what I would shoot for here would be a push-pull leg split, rest, and then I would do a push day, and then a back and a hamstring day. On the first push day, you would also do some bicep work, and there would be no additional bicep work on the back and a hamstring day. Back and a hamstring day would be solely focused on your lats, erectors, and hamstrings, as your hamstrings relative to your quads still need to be brought up, especially from the back. Your hamstrings from the side are actually pretty good, but from the back, this is where your legs do thin out a little bit, and I think some of that is down to posing as well. I think you are overtucking it a little bit too much, where you are losing some of the adductor. I think if you was to rotate your feet and knees out a little bit more and not overtuck, I don't think you'd lose as much depth in these shots, okay?
Yeah.
My priority here would be this. Overall size, without a shadow of a doubt, you need to get bigger. Like, you still have a good balanced physique, but the main areas that I would like to see catch up would be your chest and back and hamstrings to a degree. Therefore, your leg days, you only need 1 leg day a week. Your quads can pretty much sit happily at maintenance. And for structuring training volume, weekly training volume, this would potentially look like 4 direct working sets of quad work, potentially 4 direct sets of calves. I think calves are very much a genetic thing, but if we do 4 hard working sets of calves where we split 2 working sets on a leg day, 2 working sets on another day, that's still enough to elicit some growth, especially with how I like to structure calf training. It would be pretty fucking nasty. 4 working sets, I think, is perfect volume to still see you step forward a little bit, but without zapping up the recovery capabilities for your other body parts. Your back training, this is what I would probably sit at around 14 to 15 working sets per week. So this would be 8 working sets on your pull day, and then 6 to 7 working sets on your back and hamstring day. Hamstring would sit at 8 working sets per week. Chest, again, would probably sit at around 14 working sets, and then would have 4 sets of shoulders, which I think your shoulders are pretty well developed. You will also get a lot of shoulder stimulus from your push and pull days, where we will be doing some, obviously, pressing work, which will target your front delt indirectly anyway, so there's just some indirect stimulus there. And then rear delt work on your pull day as well, but also rear delts will get trained as you are training your pull work on your back and hamstring day. Your arms, again, would be pretty low volume, more than likely 4 to 5 working sets, total for biceps and tricep. And again, because you are going to have so much more work added for your push days and pull days, it's inevitable some will also have a good carry over into your triceps and biceps, okay?
Yeah.
So the way this would be structured, it would be push day, where we would focus on predominantly starting with isolation work on your Monday. Tuesday would be a lat focus day, 6 sets, so push day, let's break it down in sets of volume, okay? Monday, push day. 2 working sets of isolation work, a low incline press, a mid incline machine press, and then I would probably do 2 working sets of a lateral raise, and then I would probably do 2 working sets of some sort of high incline press, where you would get some clavicle front delt and even some medial delt depending on the height of the incline, and then 2 working sets of tricep. Okay?
Yeah.
3 working sets of lats to begin with, 2 working sets of upper back, and then I would probably do another 3 working sets of lats. That's 8 working sets of your entire lat and upper back work done, followed by 2 working sets of direct trap work, where you wouldn't do the normal chicken dance that people do, you would do a kelso shrug, because the reason why I'm leaving this side chest, actually we've got a side chest shared, I want to share the back double bicep. The reason why we would do that on the back double bicep is, can you see how your mid trap is actually quite underdeveloped? Your mid back. Yeah. The only way to target that portion of the back directly is a kelso shrug. This is why I would program a kelso shrug. Then you would finish off on two working sets of a rear delt cable fly, 2 working sets of a bicep curl. That is it. That's pull day done. Wednesday would be a leg day. 2 working sets of seated hamstring curl, 2 working sets of a leg extension. I would like to break that open, start with a hamstring curl, then go into 2 working sets of leg extension. Then I would more than likely pick, if you have available, a pendulum squat or a leg press, depending on what equipment you've got available, and that would be quad work done. And you consistently keep the same movements every single week for your quads. That's it, no changes. Then you would finish off on 2 working sets of a lying hamstring curl, and then 1 to 2 working sets of a 45-degree hyperextension, which is going to indirectly train your erectors, which are still in need of improving, which you haven't trained on the pull day, and then it will tie in some glute work indirectly and hamstring. So it's a universal movement that will tick off all the boxes for us. Then we finish off on 2 sets of calves, and potentially I would even bring calves before your pendulum and hack if you do have any issues with ankle mobility, but this would be based off your feedback. Got it?
Yeah.
Thursday rest day. Thursday rest day, you make sure you rest up and get ready for another push day. The secondary push day, I would start with 2 working sets of a converging machine chest press. This would be more of a heavier day where you are not starting isolation, where you're starting compound work. Then low incline Smith or low incline dumbbell press, depending on your preference and skill and execution and equipment available. And then I would likely do 3 sets of pec deck. And that ties us in with 7 working sets for chest done. 2 working sets of lateral raise, again, that ties us in for all of the work that we need for the delts. Then it would be 2 working sets of bicep, 2 working sets of tricep work. Job done. That's second push day done. Now, back and hamstrings. Because your back is a bigger priority over your hamstring, I would still have this day starting with back movements. But this day would be more of an even split, where I would go with 2 working sets of a single arm pull down, lower lat focus, 2 working sets of a single arm row, again, mid to thoracic lat focus, and then 2 working sets of a chest supported T-bar, which chest supported T-bar is available at most gyms. So we would do that because a chest supported T-bar is going to train some lat, some upper back, and some traps. On that same exercise then, I would do 1 single working set of a Kelso shrug, and that is 7 working sets done for back. Then we would move on to a single leg hamstring curl variation of your choice, or what you have available. The reason why I prefer single leg work for most body parts that need to be brought up, specifically your lats, you would be training your lats solely unilaterally to make sure that you can maintain good execution and posture and setup. For your structure, doing any bilateral work for back is going to be a waste of time because of how big your arms are and also how short your arms are. You have very similar structure to me. So any bilateral work for you is going to be all bicep and rear delt, not much lats. And you can see that in your back development as well. We would then move on to single leg hamstring curl, 2 working sets. I would then incorporate, depending on your skill, 2 working sets of a very strict RDL or an SLDL. And then we would finish on potentially 1 to 2 working sets of a lying hamstring curl. The benefits of doing a lying hamstring curl after the RDL, for me, is always that spinal decompression. When you lay down, it almost pulls your spine apart a little bit, which is ideal after doing RDLs. And then on that day, I would do another couple of sets of calves to finish off on, and that would be the job done. That's your entire program done with around, this would probably take us around 66 working sets per week-ish, or thereabouts.
Yes, that was great, Kuba. Thank you. Funny enough, you've basically just revealed my latest probably like setups for the only things that was missing in my training was the back and hamstring days, because I for years structured it like that. Obviously the exercise selection was different and probably the methodology behind that, but all the days and the structure of the training was basically how you explain that. So that was a pretty one, and that's made me wanted to come back to the bodybuilding like competitively. Other than I hate stepping on the stage right now, but
yeah, well, listen, it's not about the stage, is it? It's about the process more so. If you
yeah,
can,
definitely.
If you can really just focus on the process, not the outcome, it's going to take stress and pressure off you. So don't think about the stage. Think and obsess over the fucking process. More people that think just solely about getting on stage are often the people that struggle the most with bodybuilding, the process itself. Bodybuilding is not about getting on stage. Getting on stage is the cherry on top. That's what you do as a byproduct of the process. So I don't think about the fucking stage. The only thing I think about is my training, my food, my sleep, my routine, my posing. Obsess over the work that's going to put you in a spot that allows you to progress to be a better bodybuilder on stage. Just thinking about the stage doesn't contribute anything positive for most people. It's not what should drive you. What should drive you is just self-development and daily progression.
Yeah, definitely. I've always said that I am striking to have the physique like a pro, not a pro card. But yeah. Okay, so as we have my splits basically just ready for me, obviously you probably wanted me to send the videos and assess each and every exercise like separately, just to have make sure that I am doing everything right, because as you just said before, it's not only the sets or routine or amount of volume or frequency in your training, but most likely it's going to be all depending on the execution and proper form. So
every single client I work with sends me over training clips and for execution. And generally, it's 2 top working sets from each session. So generally, most people are sending around 10 training clips per week. And the reason for that is this then gives them the ability to write down the cues and what they need to do to improve in the logbook. Then they get to work with that. Next week, we'll review the next lot. And for me to get someone to a high level of training, it can probably take 10, 12 weeks for them to actually get the skill acquisition that's required to be able to really drive a lot of momentum into each and every single set and every single rep. So this would then bring us up to how we can periodize the year and what we can do from that perspective, right?
Yeah, this is like this additional question, just because I don't have any on my like sheets here, but I've recently heard something that's just make my eyes go shiny, because you've talked about not changing your exercise selections too often, just because the amount of time you need to spend on that exercise to even accumulate the proper the proper way to rate of progression is so high that most of the people are changing exercise before they reach the real progression. So I would really love you to ask, how often do you switch the exercises, or what would be the reason of switching the exercises for your clients, or even a total like training split?
I have run the same training split now for pretty much 4 or 5 years, 6 years. My needs haven't changed, therefore my training split doesn't need to change. Training split isn't as important as your volume allocation. So I can work with almost any training split, and I can make it work and work fucking well with how I can allocate the training volume spread across those days. The only thing that's most important is your training frequency and how you will attack your sets. That's what's the most important. So you change your exercises as infrequently as possible. Where you will then change your exercises is swapping a movement for like movement. So let's say you've been doing a same hack squat for 5 to 6 months, okay? Inevitably, over time, you will hit a block, but it doesn't happen over 10 weeks. After the first 10 weeks, you have only just learned how to effectively get the most out of that lift. Initially, any strength gains that you get out of an exercise is neurological adaptation, and initially, any strength gains that you get from a set exercise is also you learning the movement pattern. You get more efficient, you get better execution, therefore you are able to lift more load. That is not your muscle adapting. When you get to a point where training progression is very slow and you are not able to take big jumps in progression, that is when true and real progress begins.
Yeah, great.
So I change exercises as infrequently as possible. My goal is to get as strong as I physically can on the same exercises over as long as I physically can. The only time I will change a movement, it will be swapping. What I've done recently is my incline Atlantis press, I swapped out for incline strive press. And the main reason for that was I was already up to like fucking 5 plates on bottom peg, 5 plates or 6 plates on top peg on the Atlantis. So it's just not worth spending the time loading the plates on it. And the machine started to just feel fragile. So when you get to that point or the loading gets excessive, move on to a different exercise and rebuild back up. But also, when you swap from a movement to a different movement that is the same profile, same path, you are not rebuilding the skill acquisition again from the start because you're already somewhat familiar with that movement. So you are not going through the process of having these neurological adaptations take place over an extended period of time. So yes, I am all in for swapping movements, but they have to be like for like movements. It's not a complete overhaul. If I'm doing a cable fly, I will probably do the same cable fly just on a different cable station.
Yeah.
It's the same movement. A lot of people are not patient enough to see true progressions happen. When they hit the point where things are genuinely hard, that's when they give up and swap to an easier movement or change the movement. When it gets hard, that's the real fun. That's when the real progress begins. When you start to need to micro load, where you're trying to progress your lifts by a kilo here, or guess what? Some weeks, You may even hold the loading the same for 3 to 4 weeks and not progress, but then 4th week, you finally get an extra rep up. When you get to that point and you are strong, that is when the beauty happens. That's when true progression happens. And you've got to remember this. When you are training for bodybuilding, the adaptations that happen for you to be able to lift more load is through you actually building more muscle. It is not a quick process, even when you're using anabolics, growth hormone, and insulin. It's a process that takes time. So you need to be mindful of this, and you need to be super patient. And again, there's so much complexity that goes into it. You need to keep your reps standardized. You need to keep your lifestyle standardized, nutrition, hydration, because if you are not dialed in with all of these things, you will not be able to effectively track your progression as well, because you will get some days that your performance won't be the same if you haven't drank enough water, or you've had less meals on that day, or one day if you're training at 10 a.m., second day you're training at 11 p.m. because you've only slept 3 hours because your routine's shit. So all of these things really do need to be taken into consideration, but this is why I do not just give someone a program. I look at the lifestyle as a whole. I look at the meal timing, I look at the sleep, schedule, routine, because all of these things will impact the training performance directly and indirectly through the recovery capacity, stress levels, time management. It all plays a role. Hydration, being able to get enough food in.
Sweet.
Yep.
Sweet. I just wanted to people hear that again, just again, because I've always trying to bring up the example of Ronnie Coleman, who's probably
same movements, all the years, same exercises, same training split, same exercises, same movements, nothing changed. And he also picked exercises he could execute well over time without any risk. It's like watching Ronnie train is fucking poetry, because there's no thought. He goes into these movements and it's just like it all moves in perfect synergy. To some people, his training might not be perfect on paper, but he was so skilled at these exercises. The amount of mechanical tension he could generate was crazy. You could see it. Like, he would get onto the fucking dumbbell press and you could just see his chest just lit up instantly. So I think that's just proof in the pudding, right? When you stick to the same exercises, you get better at executing them and you simply get more from them because your skill is much higher. So pick exercises you enjoy, pick exercises you can execute well, pick exercises that are based off your needs, which then it's a middle ground of what you need to do versus what you want to do, and you need to come a middle ground with preference. If someone likes a barbell press, I would probably argue and say, okay, if you like a barbell press, let's just do a Smith press, which is going to still give you some pleasure, enjoyment, but also fit your needs. And most importantly, it's a movement that you can safely progress over time with minimal risk of injury.
Yeah. Great. Kuba, I think that this is a record of this podcast, because we are only on second question. If I've not even asked the second question, and we are 47 minutes deep. How much time do you have?
We'll probably have to do it in 2 parts, but we'll just pause it because I'll need to eat in like 30 minutes, and then we can continue after. So I've got time. I'm good.
Okay, great. So the second question of today's podcast is going to be off-season diet, and I wanted to clarify the question, because I wanted to ask you how lean you want to have your guys stay during the off-season to make sure that everything is progressing in a rate you want it to, but they are still maybe not fat. Or in the case of a guy who wanted to get to the next weight classes, maybe you feel the need to get him even a little bit chubby, in your opinion.
First and foremost, I will say this. Getting fat has absolutely no merit. If you get soft as a bodybuilder, you are not growing any more muscle tissue. So for me, you need to be as lean as you can tolerate for your own individual body fat set point. And your body fat set point will also change based off your anabolic use and based off your years of training. Can you see my sheets here, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Okay, so first, how lean do we need to stay? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So,
in your opinion,
ideally, if we are going to an off-season phase, I want you as lean as fucking possible. So, did you say that you came to me after a show extremely lean?
yeah.
Okay, perfect. So first, let's say we're starting this Monday, okay? Yeah?
Yeah.
Monday 23rd. First recovery phase. And this will be recovery phase week 1. And that would be 4 weeks, pretty much, depending on your blood work, right? Let's say you did mention that your blood work was amazing, health markers are all in check. So just confirm all that with me, yeah? Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so you're in... Let's assume your prep wasn't harsh, you didn't use any orals, it was a 12-week prep, your anabolics were pretty low, you didn't push things, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. What was your total milligrams at peak in your prep?
Usually it was around 2 grams, like 1.5 to 2 grams at most.
1.5 to 2 grams at most, okay. How much EH? How much EH?
10 IUs, year round.
Okay, perfect. That was your peak. Okay. And what was your peak doses that you ran in past?
In the past, I've never gone more than 2.5 grams. I think like everything was mostly around 1 to 2 grams.
Okay,
Throughout the
what's your adherence like? What's your food focus like? Are you mentally okay? And what was your end point with calories when you finished? Lowest point of prep before peak week?
Let's say I've always need to get to a pretty low calories, so I think that could be around 100, like probably 300 grams of protein, like 150 to 200 grams of carbs in the rest days, and 250 to 300 grams of carbs on the training days. Probably fats being around, like counting from everything, maybe like 25 to 35 grams on the training days, or maybe even a little bit less. And maybe around 50 to 60 grams on non-training days, I believe.
Okay, tell me food preferences. So give me your rough calories, lowest calories that you finished off on.
I've never counted calories, so that could be a hard one, but probably around 2,000.
Protein, carbs, and fats. Give me protein, carbs, and fats that you finished
300, probably 300 protein, around that. Probably like on average, yes, or on non-training days. Training days, yeah?
Training days and rest days.
Like I said, like you mean on off-season or?
In prep.
In prep, the lowest was, like I said, like probably around 150 grams of carbs non-training days, 220 on training days, and fats around like 20 to 30 grams on training and 50 grams of fats on non-training, probably.
Perfect. Give me your food preferences. What do you like, what you don't like?
I like almost everything, to be honest, but mostly I've just used chicken, ISO for egg whites, whole eggs, and very not often, like just time to times, maybe like lean beef, like 98 too, something like that. And sometimes I've used like dairy products, but recently I found that that's probably not the best for me, or I'm trying to get rid of all of the dairy from my diet.
No issue with whey.
No issue with whey at all.
Okay, perfect. Let's structure your diet for post-show. Cream of rice, oats, what do you like? Potatoes, rice?
Love oats. I could eat them a ton, but a lot of oats, uploaded me a little bit. So I've
Yeah, well, listen,
always,
post-show satiety is a thing, so let's assume
yeah,
you are peeled and you are starving, okay?
yeah.
Potatoes, rice, what do you prefer? Both?
Probably both, but I've always tends to use potatoes over rice during the cutting phase for obvious reasons.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Let's structure your post-show phase that I'm going to have you begin with to start with, okay?
Yeah.
And this is going to be your start point for our off-season. And this is what I'm going to have you pretty much begin with.
So I don't have to. Obviously, I don't have to ask because I see it here. You've counting everything from the raw sources, so not
So
uncooked rice,
let me just
uncooked
explain.
potatoes, and stuff like that.
Let me just explain. If you notice what I did here first, I set your protein first.
Yeah.
So this is your protein intake that I think is going to be sufficient enough to see growth. More protein for you right now would be pretty... I'm not going to insult anyone that likes higher protein, but if I was to give you less protein here right now, I'm not going to give you the same amount of carbs and fats. What's going to build more muscle when it comes to improving your training performance and health markers? Is it protein or is it carbs?
Carbs, definitely.
So why would I give you more protein when we know that you will build more muscle when you are in a state of well-nourished and well-filled glycogen?
Yeah, I'm on the same boat as you, but sometimes for satiety, like it's a good idea to up in protein a bit.
So I agree and disagree here. More protein at this point.
No, I have not
wouldn't-
said more than
Yeah.
that because there is a threshold.
Yeah, absolutely. I think anything more than 45 grams per meal, 50 grams per meal, is not really going to give you any more satiety. What will give you more satiety is incorporating fruit and veg into every single meal, which then gives you a lot more micronutrients and macronutrients, which you need both of in order to be able to recover well. So the way I will structure your diet is going to be ticking off all the boxes when it comes to not just satiety, but when it comes to meeting your micronutrient needs and macronutrient needs. And I'm going to give you some references and guidelines as to what we need to do moving forwards with general ability to sustain performance, get you recovered, and get you in a good spot physically and mentally. I think that is essential to be able to get you in a spot where we are already building muscle tissue. So this is somewhat the guidelines, and then veg, I will want to see you do a mixed veg, and it will be around 450 grams per day, and that is your actual set point for veg on a daily basis. That is your target. Fruit is going to be added within your diet, but veg amounts are going to be consistent day to day based off your preferences and digestion. Your first point for someone of your size, if you are lean enough, your training day calories are going to be set at 4,236, 370 protein, which is higher than I would normally because I know that you do like higher protein intake based off already knowing you in past. And this will be your training day diet setup. On your actual leg day, I am going to give you a little bit less carbs because you are not going to need quite as much calories, in my opinion, to be able to recover because your training volume is going to be somewhat lower on your leg day. And there's not going to be as much of a demand for calories on that day. On your rest day, we are going to run a very similar setup. And we are going to have a little bit less calories in play because you just simply don't need as much calories to be able to recover because you're not going to be as active. You don't have a 2-hour training window. So it does not make sense for you to be eating as much food on a rest day. However, this is where we will have an opportunity to bring up your fats just ever so slightly and potentially keep the carbohydrates still adequate enough to be able to see some recovery and not have you in a spot where you are completely depleted by bringing those carbohydrates too low. I am still going to keep a decent amount of carbs in pre-bed just so you can sleep well. So essentially, a variance for someone that trains really, really hard, for me, is around 600 to 800 calories. This is how I would structure your nutrition for this initial recovery phase, okay?
Yeah.
And this is a full mixture of your protein, carbs, fats, but also your micronutrients from the fruit and from the veg intake as well. And if satiety is the goal, it only makes sense to eat foods that are not only going to bring more satiety, but give you more fiber, which is going to improve your gut health and improve your health parameters in general. And essentially, veg is quite nice to eat when you can cook well.
Yeah.
So if you're hungry post-show, not only you get a little bit more volume in your food, but you also get macronutrients and micronutrients that you need to recover and improve your health markers. This would be the start point for your actual diet. All clear?
Yeah.
Happy with that?
That's a great setup, to be honest. And your sheets are made perfectly. I'm ashamed of my sheets right now.
Right. So that's what I want to set. Timeline wise now, recovery phase, if your bloods are immaculate, I want 4 weeks in recovery phase. It's not a rebound. This phase is all about improving your training. And again, training workload is going to be push, pull, legs, rest, pull, back, hams. And then it's going to be around 66 sets per week. Okay?
Yeah.
This volume is going to stay consistent for at least 8 weeks. That's what I want to see anticipated here for this period of time at least. And this gives the ability now to improve your execution, improve your general ability to drive more tension into the muscle. So if you give me the feedback that this is too much, we'll pull back. If it's not enough, we won't increase your volume yet. We will keep that steady for at least 8 weeks, okay?
Yeah, that's
Perfect.
great.
Recovery phase, 4 weeks. I will want to see some more blood work at this point. So before we actually re-escalate, I will want to see some more blood work done around the 21st of March. Job done. Now, let's talk about off-season length. I am not a fan of doing short off-seasons. I don't think realistically you can gain that much muscle. And if someone does a short off-season, they will always gain more body fat than needed because they will rush. What I will want to see as a goal for you, let's say we finish competing and you are weighing 102 kilos. Is that correct?
Yeah.
102 kg. Okay, 102. So we've got 102 here. Okay, 102. My goal for you is to finish at 122 kg with glutes boxed off. Glutes boxed off is not too far off the condition that you have sent me over in these check-in pictures. Probably 3% more body fat than you had in the pictures that you sent over. Because I'm assuming 102 kilo start point here is you peeled inside out. Like legit fucking gnarly, okay?
Yeah, actually, those photos, that might be even a little bit higher than 105 kilos because I've stepping on stage with dialed in glutes. Like you can see that peanut. I have the first like photos on my Instagram. Peanuts is around 102 kilos because that was my stage weight on that day, and I have striated glutes and deeply striated glutes. So,
so your start point is 102 kilo for recovery phase. What I would want to see you is finish recovery phase probably around 105, and that's still going to be like incredibly fucking lean for your start point of the cycle, okay?
Yeah.
Let's assume blood work checks out. What is your previous history with stack cycle design? Your favorite compounds, what you've used, what works, what doesn't, what you like, what you tolerate. Give me as much feedback as you can.
Most of my quote unquote career as a bodybuilder, I've used something like Test EQ or Test EQ and some natural like NPP or DECA, which is probably almost the same.
Okay, don't like Primo, don't like Mastron, can't source it, yeah?
It's not like I don't like it. I was never utilized it before because I've was like back in the day. If I was thinking like everyone's like this is like chicks drugs is
Yeah.
most likely gonna be only like probably like visible changes, nothing that's build muscle. Recently, my thought process changed because I've more knowledgeable about that, but I've never have like productive off season or any try of me building muscle on any DHT derivatives. So I've never tried it before.
You've never tried it ever.
Yeah, never
May
tried
I?
it like
Can you
like
source? Can you source Primo?
I wasn't. I wouldn't be sure of that, to be honest.
Tell me the compounds that you can definitely source that are going to be legit.
Tests, EQ, natural ones of any sorts.
That's it.
But nothing more because no one uses like
Okay.
DHP or anything.
Tell me your peak cycle from previous off season. The most you've ever used.
The most I've ever used,
Yeah.
probably around 1,000 mix of tests or
Yeah.
1,200 maybe. Probably around 700 EQ, 2,000 EQ, and that's it. Like
Perfect.
but I've almost never like mixed three compounds. But if I do, it'll probably be around 1,000 mix, 700 EQ, and 350 NPP.
Okay, perfect. First cycle escalation, 500 mg of tests, 500 mg of EQ. 12.5 I use of GH. That is what I would like to see as our first point of escalation, and then I would like to hold that for 3 weeks and simply see what this does. Thought process behind this is this. Long esters are always going to take a little bit longer to peak. EQ specifically is going to take around 4 to 6 weeks to fully peak, right?
Yeah.
In this 3-week window, I'm already going to see what sort of response you get out of this stack cycle design. Let's say we get to the 13th of April and you are giving me some signs that estrogen potentially is lower and you are feeling some low estrogen side effects with your joints being a little bit stiffer. You are waking up frequently. You are waking up super early and feeling wired. All of the signs of your estrogen being lower alongside of lower libido, etc. is there, okay?
Yeah.
Next cycle escalation is going to be raising up that testosterone to probably, let's say, 800 milligrams and keeping your EQ exactly the same. That is it. We hold that for another 3 weeks, and then let's say funds are unlimited. You can run blood work anytime you want, yeah?
Yeah, definitely, especially in Poland.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
At this point now, before we take any further decisions, I'm going to want to see some blood work and review it here, especially see where estrogen's sitting at, whatnot. If you can get estrogen sensitive test in Poland?
No, that could be
Okay.
a really big problem because here
That
in
was-
Poland, finding anything else than urea is almost impossible.
That's fine. So what we will need to know is essentially seeing what your estrogen is going to be like at peak doses before we consider adding nandrolone. However, your stacked cycle design is not going to be completely pre-planned for this phase here.
Yeah.
And the main reason for that is I don't know if we'll need more anabolics.
Yeah.
If we get to this point in week off season number 6 and you are making incredible progress, guess what? We are just simply extending this and we're riding it out. Yeah? When we start to see progression stall, that's when we can consider adding more anabolics. If you like nandrolone and you have previous history of nandrolone when you feel great, let's say we needed another cycle bump, and this is me speaking theoretically, you need another cycle bump to push you forward in off-season week 8. What I would do here is, again, if the blood work comes out and your estrogen's in range, in perfect range, all I would do here is raise up your testosterone up to 1,000 milligram and keep EQ as is. Okay? We then hold that for 4 to 5 weeks. We'll see what progression's like again. Before we consider using any nandrolone, I would run another set of blood work, and let's say again, estro is all in check. We're feeling great. We're feeling fucking amazing. What we may need to do then let's say you hit a bit of a sticky point by off-season week 16. That is when we would consider moving on to a stack cycle design with nandrolone in it. Nandrolone is amazing, however, it is extremely potent. I would rather use nandrolone as something that allows us to break through a plateau. I wouldn't use nandrolone from the start, because out of all compounds, it does show some neurodegenerative effects, which I am not a fan of. So when it comes to use of any 19 NORs, I would always like to keep it as low as possible and use it in situations where it's actually super, super necessary to get you over that hump, okay? So let's say at this point, off-season week 15, blood work is excellent again. Estrogen has come back all in check. We then will introduce 350 milligrams of MPP.
One thing, I am rather easily converted, so probably even like 50, 500s will to get my estrogen up in a higher ranges. So that will be
If that's the case, if you
see, right now I'm on 150 milligrams of testosterone a week without any AIs, and my estro is around 70.
Okay, now, have you stayed leaner before in a push-up phase? Or have you always gotten a little bit softer, and have you always added body weight a little bit quicker?
No, I would have to say I've never got really chubby in the last 5 years. I believe I don't think I am get all my peak off-season weight was 125 kilos, and I still can see my abs. I still can see my quads separated. My ass wasn't peeled by any means, but that wasn't
Based off this feedback, we are going to run with more so 1-to-1 ratio. So what I'm going to do here is bring down your testosterone to, let's say, 600, and EQ will come to 700 here. And then again, we'll likely split this, likely 800 EQ and then 700 test instead, if you do aromatize a little bit more. And then this then gives us the option to do this for this final little stint of this push-up, is essentially run this for our final push, where we will then introduce a little bit of MPP at 350 milligrams for this final 10 weeks. This will be a peak dosing. But again, this is all based off the feedback that I'm seeing from you. It's not necessarily pre-planned, okay?
Yeah, of course.
So we would pivot and make adjustments, just like you've just said here. If I run into an issue with someone where aromatase is high, we'll change the stack cycle design. We don't just stick to the same shit. I wouldn't just throw my eyes at you, because the reason, my thought process is this. We're already when using drugs, right? It doesn't make sense to then add more drugs when instead, to manage your estrogen, I can just change the dosing of the drugs that you're already taking.
Yeah.
What makes more sense? Add more drugs or change the drugs you are already taking?
Definitely change the drugs, but one thing, do you never use any AIs?
Oh yeah, I do. If I need to manage estrogen acutely. So if I need to manage estrogen quickly, I'll use a little bit of AIs, but I try not to, because again, most people will still add in AIs as part of a cycle. And I think, why? When you can just take less drugs and see less side effects. Does it make sense?
Yes, but for some guys that would be meaning really, really low tests. For example, Jordan is probably one of the greatest example here, because he tends to run 300 mg of tests with additional 2 to 2.5 grams of other drugs to just combat his estrogen conversion.
Right, so let's say Jordan's going to be taking 2 grams of gear total, yeah?
Yeah.
He's already taking 2 grams of gear.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter what it is. So why?
Definitely. But I would just say, but you said acutely. But for some guys, that would mean that because I saw those guys who are running like almost 2 grams of DHT derivatives, like Masteron of Primo, and keeping the test really, really low just to offset the estrogen conversion. But in my opinion, running 2 grams or 2.5 grams of gear just to combat
So
this estrogen, that would be
that's not what I'm saying.
stupid.
That's not what I'm saying, though.
Yeah, I get you, but I wanted to explain it for the people who are watching,
Yeah.
because most of the guys are thinking like that. They run like 500 mix of tests, and they've tried to add as much DHT derivative to
No,
combat that.
that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is design your stat cycle design where you do not require taking IIs.
Yeah,
So if Jordan aromatizes heavily, run lower test, add more EQ, and run some nandrolone outside of it. That probably makes more sense than taking test, high dose of test, just to take more II, but he's still taking, let's say he needs 2 grams of gear total to get his size. Make up that 2 gram with the gear you can tolerate, with no sides, and no need to use any IIs. That's what makes the most sense for me, as opposed to taking still 2 grams of gear, but taking IIs on top to manage estrogen.
Yeah.
Like, it's just logic, right?
definitely.
These drugs work. They're extremely effective in cases, but they are not needed in instances like this. So this is an overview of how I'd structure the drugs. And again, guys, this would not be pre-planned. All these escalations here, guys, will be based off the response that I'm seeing. And this could be even a case where David is responding extremely well on this setup. If he's responding extremely well in this setup, we just ride this out, and then maybe we get here where David finally hits a bit of a sticky point, probably at pretty much week 16, right? But he's still taking this. All we could do then here is literally just adding NPP, but with these doses here. But at the same time, it could be more, could be less. It all depends on the response that I see. If he's not really making the progress, training, nutrition, sleep routines all dialed in, and we need to take it to 2 grams again, we do that. If we need to take it to 2,100, we do that, okay? But the last thing I want to do is take more drugs when drugs are not really working hand in hand with the training, and training isn't dialed in, okay? Right, let's take a little break because I do need to eat, and then we'll resume.
Okay, and we're getting back. And do you remember when we are cut off?
I'm not going to lie, I had to do quite a bit of work in between.
Okay, so
I cannot remember, so you have to remind me, sorry.
So from my recall, we just like established what would typically my 20 few weeks of off season looks like, coming off the health phase, and first of all coming up the prep. And right now, you've explained that basically you're titrating up the gear if needed, and adjust my cycle into my needs based on the estrogen profile. And you explained that you will not like to use AI if possible, because you're a firm believer in using the proper setup for our cycle guidance through the whole process without using any AIs, if that's possible.
Look, AIs can serve a purpose, yes, but thinking about things logically, right? Why use a drug to counteract a side effect of a drug when you can simply change the drugs that you are already taking? So I am not saying use a high amount of DHT to control your estrogen. What I am saying is restructure the same milligrams you're already taking with drugs you can tolerate without the need for an II on top. If you're already taking the drugs, right, you don't really want to be taking drugs on top. That's my whole point. If your estrogen is super high and we need to get your estrogen under control quickly, yes, an II can be used. But other than that, I don't really use them. I don't use them in peak weeks. I don't use them in prep. And I have seen far more success with clients not using them. Clients are staying fuller. Training performance is better. Sleep's better. Lipids are better. I see no purpose and use for II. So we've got your nutrition sorted. We've got your timeline sorted. We know roughly what drugs are going to be required. Again, this may come up, may come down. It all depends on what you need, right? So that is all sorted. We've got your training sorted. What else would you like to know, my friend?
Yeah, the questions are followed by like a structure that have here on my sheets, but actually I probably will not need to ask you about the protein amount because you showed us, about the fats amount because you showed us, and amount of carbs because you showed us everything. But
I can go back onto the diet and give you any further info if you'd like.
yeah, I would like to go a little bit. Yeah, I know that that will be a preferable setup for myself, but do you have any guidelines or like standards? Like, obviously, that's going to be a range. Would you like when you like to keep your guys based off probably digestion and stuff like that when it comes to protein, fats, and carbs? Because we see the tendency, for example, like in the US, they are more preferable of higher fats. You can see even a very high level athletes using all the fats with almost like additional fats, obviously, with almost every meal. For example, good example will be the Brett Wilkin, who is using like a lot of carbs and a lot of fats as well. And what do you think about that? And what do you think about the fats in bodybuilding in general, knowing that we are having the outside source of our hormones?
Yeah. So, right. What it's going to come down to is you needing a certain amount of calories to grow. However, what I would always argue, if you need, and again, this varies person to person, absolutely. I have some clients that need 6,000 calories per day, 7,000 calories per day to grow. I have some clients that only need 4,000 to grow. It's going to change person to person massively. I am personally not a massive fan of high protein and high fat. I am more of a moderate protein intake based off preference again. And this will always land at around 2 grams of protein, 2.5 grams of protein per kilogram. That's coming from direct sources. And then whatever else goes on top, it's not really that important. So for you at 102 kilos, right?
Yeah.
Your direct protein intake without indirect sources was around 270, 280 grams of protein, without including your potato, rice, oats, etc. You don't need more than this to grow. You just don't. If you do take in more protein, you are then only taken away from having the ability to incorporate more carbs and more fats into your diet, which do have other benefits. Fats, to a degree, you will need for general health, micronutrient absorption, and absorption of vitamins and minerals. That's as far as it goes. Other than that, fats are just an energy source. That is it. However, it is not your body's favorite energy source when it comes to training performance. Your body's favorite energy source when it comes to training performance is carbohydrates. So I would always lean into taking a higher carbohydrate intake or higher carbohydrate amount on training days, slightly lower on rest days, and bump up the fats if needed. Fat, generally, I like to shoot for around 0.5 grams of fat per kilogram of body weight, depending on the person's needs. Again, some people a little bit less, some people a little bit more. A lot of people in depression, that higher fat amount is actually healthy. I would argue I have seen more LDL increases off the back of higher fat intakes, even all coming from healthy fats, than lower fat diets. Therefore, my preference for someone who is using anabolics above physiological levels, so anything above TRT, you probably want to be using slightly less fats just to maintain better health. And know, and look, one of my favorite people in the world is Dr. Dwayne Jackson. I did his nutrition course, which is amazing. I think everyone should definitely look into it. And some of the stuff that Dr. Dwayne teaches is absolutely right, but it's not really for people like us that are using 2 grams of anabolics plus, when you are taking all these anabolics and your fat intake is high, your LDL will also raise much, much faster with it. What is the biggest risk in population of bodybuilders that are using androgens?
Yeah, heart health, definitely.
What is the biggest cause for any cardiac issues? It's generally LDL.
Yeah.
So anything that we can do to mitigate your LDL increasing, we should consider. HDL, as we all know from all the latest research and anecdotally, is not really that much of a problem if your LDL is kept under check and in check. So, I'm not against higher fats. If someone needs higher fats, yes. What I am against is using a crazy amount of fats and low carbohydrates when trying to build muscle tissue. It's just not a well-designed diet to build muscle. However, 60 to 75 grams of fats per day, which is your diet, that's not low fat. That's not low fat. That's still what I would probably call moderate to even higher amount of fat. I mean, 70 grams of fats per day is getting up there. That's probably the highest I'd like it to go. I wouldn't, from this setup here, I would now only leverage increases in carbohydrates. And even potential later on, I may even look at reducing your protein intake further directly, slightly, in favor of more carbohydrates, understanding that carbohydrates are protein sparing. Then, what we need to look at is digestion. You can only eat what you can digest.
Yeah.
If I have an athlete that is shitting after every single meal and they hold this badge of honor saying that eating 6,000 calories to grow, you are not absorbing these nutrients. You're not absorbing the food. So if you're shitting at every single meal and you're eating all this food and you're not growing, we probably need to fix your digestion. A lot of bodybuilders are actually celiac, and they don't even know they're celiac. A lot of bodybuilders even have gluten intolerances. A lot of bodybuilders eat foods that simply do not sit with them and they cannot digest well because the normal, typical bodybuilding foods. A lot of bodybuilders do not eat enough veg, enough fermented food, enough fruit. They don't have an adequate amount of fiber in the diet. Therefore, the digestion always suffers. Therefore, their ability to absorb and digest the food suffers. You can only do what you can recover from. You can only eat what you can digest. So when I structure a diet, it's based off preferences, your ability to digest the food, and your needs. Some people may need more fat than others. Some people may need less. Some of my guys are extremely low fat, extremely high carb with moderate protein. Some of my guys do need a little bit more protein based off preference, but again, more protein I do find causes fermentation in the gut and causes gut issues in general. So my protein intake isn't low, it's not high, it's somewhere in the middle based off what someone needs.
Yeah, definitely. And I've do noticed that in myself, in my case, and many of my athletes, that actually lowering the protein is something that pushed them further.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Better pumps, better digestion, better blood sugars. When you are eating too much protein, your food just sits in your gut. I mean, it's not an environment that's going to drive any anabolism because your ability to drive muscle tissue is going to be dictated by your ability to recover. If you are not absorbing the food, you're not recovering. You only need to eat enough food to facilitate training performance and your recovery. Nothing more, nothing less. So your surplus that you need to be eating in isn't quite high. And where most people blow it is they will often binge post-show, overeat, they completely smash the insulin sensitivity into the ground, and then they wonder why the appetite's shot and they're not growing. My absolute mission is to make sure that every athlete is staying relatively hungry and is staying with high appetite. Most of my guys are eating 5,000 calories per day, balanced diets, just like the one I've showed you, with slightly different variances based on preferences, and absolutely all of them have an extremely high appetite. No issues with eating the food at 5,000 calories daily. The only way to do that is eating to your needs and not overfeeding in single, large, massive cheat meals. That is what completely fucks people progress every fucking time. Their inability to control the amount of food they eat. And most people want to eat more food, right? And they could be eating more food. The only way to do that is being patient enough to allow your calories to be raised by not overeating. Got it?
Yeah, that's a dot. Okay, so let me ask probably, but this is a really general question, and for some maybe stupid, but based on your experience with the athletes, and most of the time, those athletes who are working with you right now are basically very experienced one. It's probably not often or none of the like a new bodybuilders who maybe struggle with like understanding the process and stuff like that. But even with those who are doing it for 15, 20 years even, you are still seeing sometimes like mistakes, like silly mistakes. So what do you think are the biggest diet mistakes or general mistakes that athletes can make to just basically just screw the whole process of building muscle, or the whole off season, like just I don't know, just playing against themselves?
Okay, so the one single biggest one is overeating and trying to eat muscle on. You cannot eat muscle on. It's just not how it works. I wish you could. If you could eat muscle on, I would be the biggest bodybuilder on earth, but you cannot, because like I have always had an extreme appetite, and that's just it's fine. I can deal with it, but I also like being hungry.
This
So
is Polish blood.
Yeah, 100%. It doesn't bother me, right? But the single biggest mistake I see people make is just overeating, pushing up the calories too quickly, and thinking that more calories will create more growth and more muscle, and it's the opposite. The first 4 weeks post-show, instead of gaining 0.5% of the total body weight, they're up 20, 30 pounds in first 4 or 5 weeks. That's the off-season come to a stop. Like, the reason why I often run long off-season phases with people, and you will have seen with some of my clients, that they're going to be 30 pounds up over the case of 16, 20 weeks, but barely any change to condition, is because we don't gain the body fat. We take things steadily, and we allow training performance to dictate the body weight moving, not so much the food. And this is me not saying I don't feed my clients. All my clients, especially the ones that can control their eating, they're eating a ton of food, but they're eating a ton of quality food. They're not binging over the weekends. They're not just driving up the body weight with a single meal off every week, eating fucking pies and pizza every weekend, and then thinking why they're not getting a food increase when the body weight is up every single week by 4 or 5 pounds by that meal. Then that is what happens generally, is they will get to like week 8 of their off season or week 9, right? They're up 35 pounds already in 8 weeks. Out of that 8 weeks, out of that 35 pounds, they will have probably gained 4 pounds of muscle maximum. The rest of that is just glycogen and water, but they think it's muscle because they're bursting full, they're round. They're going to be initially. Give it another 5 weeks and that look fades. Then they start getting softer, and then appetite is gone. They cannot eat. Digestion's gone. They're farting. They're bloated. So the single biggest mistake is just people rushing, people not being patient enough with food, drugs, and training. Lack of patience. It kills progress. Now, to add to lack of patience, I think people get distracted. People will sit on Instagram and YouTube. They will listen to all of these ideas, and every 5 minutes they want to try a different approach. It all works. Low volume, low drugs, high drugs, fucking high protein, low protein. Whatever you do will work if you work hard enough and you stick to the fucking plan. Yeah. What doesn't work is trying one thing for a week, trying another thing for 2 weeks, and then chopping and changing constantly. That's what doesn't work.
Yeah. Yesterday I put a reel and I said that the worst plan on earth is better than the best plan on earth switching every week. Yeah,
fucking nailed it, my friend.
I've been in that place. This is coming from my experience, because I was a guy who was reading every fucking thing that comes into my hands.
I still do.
Me too. But right now I can like just sorted it. And back then I've just thinking that, oh, that is the best thing ever. Oh, that is the best thing ever. Oh, that probably is even better. So each week I was changing and switching. Sometimes to the counteractive point, like I was trying like low fat diet in week 1, and week 2 was only fat diet.
Yeah. I mean, it would all work if you actually just give it time. What I find the biggest frustration with myself, and I can use myself as an example, is, and this is something I do really well at with coaching my clients, is when I see the way I broke down your needs, your volume, your training. It's almost like, have you seen the film Limitless, right? When he takes that thing and he can just see everything clearly, and he can just make the decisions there and there. I can do that with other people so fucking easily. Like, it's just like that. It's almost like second nature. I see your physique and I know exactly what needs to be done. I know exactly what you'll need diet-wise. I know exactly what you need food-wise. Part of that is because I've done it for so long, but part of that is because it is my passion, it is my life. But also, the worst part about it is when it comes to my process, I can overanalyze a little bit, and it can come at my own demise, where if I was working with a client and progress was going superbly fucking well, I'd be like, right, we're killing it. We ride this out now. We don't fucking change. For me, when everything's going well, I will then look for ways to try and improve it when you don't need to improve it. And I feel like that's what a lot of people do tend to make mistakes as well. And I think that's what a lot of inexperienced coaches make mistakes with the clients, is they will have the setup for the client nailed. The client's making a ton of progress, and then all of a sudden they start making little tweaks to try and get more progress. And then 9 times out of 10, it actually backfires and they start making less progress. So sometimes try not to fix what isn't broken. If you are already making progress, you probably don't need to fuck with anything until that progress slows down. Then you make a change. Then you try and adjust. But again, beauty of bodybuilding is that we do get to do these experiments, right, on ourselves, and essentially we've got all these different case studies with clients that give us these reference points, and I think every client truly is not only a way you can learn, but every client is an opportunity for you to see more progress yourself as a coach, as an athlete, and be able to even break things down even better for yourself, and then see what else needs to be done. And listen, it's like, before this year, right, and I've always had quite a bad experience with EQ. Like, the last time I took EQ was 2020, so I always erred on the side of caution with using it, but this year I was forced to use it with a lot more people. Yeah. And like, some guys that I'm using just testing EQ with, and by the way, testing EQ, and then on stage, fucking peeled inside out dry, full, round, no IIs, no dropping GH, none of that. Just testing EQ. I've seen some incredible results. So what I am also very good at, and I think that's something that most athletes need to be open to, is having an open mind to change, and an open mind to experiment, but also having an open mind to potentially seeing if there is a better way to do this.
Yeah.
One of my favorite sayings is it all works until it doesn't. Whatever you are doing now will always work until you need to push things to another level. Your training right now will work, but guess what? A few weeks later, you might need to train harder. You might need to execute better. The process of bodybuilding is about forever evolving. It's about stacking these marginal gains, marginal 1% improvements on a daily basis with everything that you do. Better sleep, better stress management, better time management. Like today, I'll give you an example, right? I knew I had the podcast, but the only reason why I'm doing this podcast today with you is because today is the time where I can do this with the least disruption to my day and not it impacting my training time, my sleep, or my ability to eat my meals, or my client work. So you've got to take all these things into consideration. And look, if you're a fucking genetic freak and it comes easy to you, it doesn't matter. You won't need to be as dialed in. But there will come a time where even the genetic freaks hit a point where no more progress is made. And at that point, they refuse to have an open mind to see what needs to be done better. Instead, they keep doing the same shit, expecting a different result, and nothing happens.
Yeah.
Fucking bit of a tangent, but You get the drift.
Yeah. So, but do you think that all your progression that you speak about just now is just come like more recent, like in the last 2 years, I would say, because I am gonna tell you that because I've never speak about anyone in public with anything that I would not set them in their eyes. So I will not think that just wanted to pretend that I am not. For example, I am gonna to try to explain the best way I can because my English is not the best, but there was a like mention about you in a professional masters, and I said that to be honest, think that you looked the best when you were with Jordan. And I said that I don't see almost any changes in your physique in the years from that. But there's a caveat about that. I've not followed you like really closely for over the last probably 2 years or something. And I have to say, I took the pictures of you and put it next to itself, and I have to tell you that yeah, they definitely make a huge progress. So I have to back to you about that. And I am telling you that just because I am not a kind of guy who just licking an ass of someone, and I am not. We don't have any bad blood or anything like that. We barely know each other, to be honest. And I like you very much. I like your approach because recently I've watched many of your recent videos, and I have to say that you are basically you and John Jewett were guys who are changed my way of thinking very, very much. I might not agree with 100% you guys said, but I've done like a whole curriculum of John's courses and stuff like that, and I've done them twice actually. And to be honest, I've always like not full curriculum because I just kept some some not interesting one, but to be honest, back in the days I wasn't like agreeing on many stuff. I even have a one podcast with John where we are basically arguing with each other. Yeah, you saw that one, yeah. So this is why I'm telling you that, because I am not a man who try to pretend like I am the licking ass you're here, but I would have to tell you that I am madly appreciate what you done for me today and how you explain everything. And I just wanted to get back to you with that because I was basically wrong. I was basically wrong. I've made a huge mistake of telling that you are not making any progression. Could you done a little bit more? Probably, but probably with a lot putting on health on the table, like risking your life and your health.
Yeah. So
5 times as much. So yeah.
What I can say is I'm probably using less drugs than I was back then, and I have used much less drugs than I was back then in the past 3 years. And I've pretty much gone from competing at like 225 pounds with a soft backside to last year competing at 241 pounds with being relatively in shape. So
relatively in shape.
Relatively in shape. So the most progress I've made is definitely been like the last 3 years, and that's using less drugs, and that's putting more emphasis on training, putting more emphasis on being a better bodybuilder and living the life as a bodybuilder. And what is also the most interesting is that since I have put more effort into actually living like a bodybuilder and living the lifestyle that I do and living the life like I do, and I've gained a deeper understanding of the process with training and everything else, I've fallen in love with the sport even more. So not only am I making more progress now, taking less drugs, but I love the process even more because everything that I do is more so process driven. I love competing, but competing is more almost like a little checkpoint on the journey. It's like you compete to display something that you're working on, but competition itself isn't really what matters. What matters is me executing the off-season, me executing the prep. Like, that's what gives me the biggest fucking buzz. Like, even now, right, I'm waking up excited to start my days. I can't wait to start my fucking days, because every day is not only an opportunity for me to get a good session in, get a good training session in, learn something new, have a good day with clients, have a good day with the process in general. So I think the mindset is a huge one, right? The more positive you can stay, more locked in you can stay, happier can you be, and better environment you can create for yourself that's conducive towards your goals, more progress you will make. And that's something that's extremely undervalued. A lot of people live a life of chaos, right? A life of chaos is not conducive to any athlete's goals. If you want to be a great bodybuilder, you need to try and live like a fucking athlete.
Yeah.
You need to put more emphasis on your rest, recovery, your relationships. It's not just about lifting. It's not just about taking gear and eating the food. You need to take care of this. You need to make sure that mentally you find ways to decompress and keep yourself mentally fresh in the game. I think all of these things play a massive role. And whether people make progress or not, or they do well on stage or not, is that relevant? If it makes them fucking happy, and the process of what I do right now makes me incredibly happy, you're winning. Like, I know some bodybuilders that are fucking winning shows, or have won shows, won many shows in past. They fucking hate doing this. Imagine living a life where you do something, right, but you only do it because you're fucking good at it. You're not doing it because you're passionate about it. Imagine living that life.
That's a pretty beautiful life, to be honest. And when you have purpose, no matter what it is, it is. There's a Polish, like, I don't know, it's a guru, or I don't know how to say it in English, but there's a man who just
Po polsku powiedz. We can translate it.
Taki mentor, można powiedzieć, nie wiem jak to powiedzieć po polsku, taki psycholog, który się zajmuje coachingiem mentalnym.
So he's like a performance coach, or like a sports psychologist.
But he is not from the sport, so he's like a general performance psychologist. Yeah. So he says that life has no purpose. Life is a purpose.
Yeah.
And this is like the most beautiful thing that I've heard for many years. And that was actually something that makes me change everything about my life, because you're talking about process of bodybuilding, and actually competing in a bodybuilding shows are made me stop bodybuilding like almost at all for some time, because I've been in a point that I felt like I have to show up each year just because there is a season of competing. And I hated it. I just wanted to win my pro card so bad that I've competed each year. And I'm standing on the stage and I'm thinking, how much longer, brother? I just want to get off the stage and go to train or do whatever else than coming on the stage. And right now, like, I am in a place that I've started to love bodybuilding again. The worst thing is that I was severely injured, that I have like a sciatic nerve damage. So for basically last 2.5 months, I can barely sit. Right now it's a lot better, as you can see. But like a month ago, I would not be able to sit and talk with you because I was laying almost all day. So right now I'm tiny as fuck, and I'm just flat, and I've off gears from like almost. I've been off like 3-4 months, like totally off. Right now I'm on 150 mg of tests, and I'm getting back. Like, I was talking to the Kyle Wilkins a week ago, that the one thing that I've noticed, that my strength, even though I have not lifting for 2 months, not taking gear for over 4 months at this point, is barely diminished. Like barely, maybe like 15 to 20% of my maxes. And that's almost nothing, to be honest. So my goal for now is just come back to the size a little bit and get it again. So I'm. This is why I'm smiling almost all the podcast, because you're setting up this thing is just lighting a light in my head, and I love it even more, not because of competing, but because of this shit we're talking about here, like setting up everything, like checking the boxes daily and stuff like that. Because I wasn't be able to just get off the bodybuilding like that.
Just remember this, right? And I had to change my mindset around this as well, especially last year competing season. Do not take competing for granted, because there will come a time where you will not be able to do this, right?
Yeah.
So as much as you say you want to just get it over with on show day, you need to reframe your mindset a little bit around it, because a show day is an opportunity for you to display the fruits of your labor. It doesn't matter where you place. It's an opportunity to have almost a highlight of your entire process displayed on a stage. Do not take the joy out of that, because that should be celebrated. It's not only a celebration, but you've got to look at it as almost like an assessment point that is part of the process. It's a pivotal part of your assessment point that gives you then an opportunity to plan the next part of the process. So the way you should probably reframe your mindset when it comes to looking at competing is, it's an opportunity for a stepping stone to be there. You tick that box, you celebrate that day, and celebrate it in a way where it's an opportunity for a new portion of the process to begin all over again.
Yeah, that's beautiful said, but my problem was actually a little bit deeper, because mine was caused by me getting a pressure amongst myself. That's I was not thinking about myself, but what others would set if
Well,
I'm
people's
gonna.
expectations, yeah, that's all.
Yeah,
That's all it.
because of the social media, and I was putting those vlogs, and people are rooting for me, and I've always felt like, man, that's shitty as fuck. And at some point, that was just too much on my head. But right now, I'm basically just changed. I do remember that you were actually on a similar point one time when you when you competed on the classic physique, and you start lowering your gear and probably thinking a little bit more about your health in general and stuff like that. And could you talk us about a little bit about that? Because I think that almost 100% bodybuilders have that thoughts in their minds, but there are barely anyone who are speaking that out loud about those doubts, about those dark thoughts that we've all struggled with.
I mean, look, it's part of what we do, right? We take the risk. We've just got to make sure it's a calculated risk. The way I look at things is this. Looking at things logically, right? What I'm doing right now isn't the healthiest, no. But if I wasn't doing this, is there a life where, one, I'm just not living a happy, fulfilled life? Yes. Is there another option where some of my life choices are probably more deleterious to my health than they are right now? Yes, absolutely. With my personality, the way I am, there's definitely option for that.
Yeah.
So, what would be better? Living a happy, fulfilled, purposeful life and maybe shave off some time of your life, than living a miserable, unhappy life doing something you fucking hate every single day, but living like a pillar of health.
Yeah.
Health is also something that I believe is connected with your mental state. The people that are the happiest generally are the healthiest. If you are living a very happy life, you are taking all the strategies that you can in the world to mitigate some of the health risks. You are not taking the piss with the drugs. You are not eating shit every week. That's going to put more of an impact on your health than the drugs will. And I've seen that firsthand with blood work and even echocardiograms.
Definitely.
I mean, look, it is what it is. But self-doubt, it comes and goes. If I was to tell you that I don't think about it, probably weekly, I would be lying. Like, I think every bodybuilder thinks about it. Every bodybuilder thinks about what if. Every bodybuilder has that other voice in their head saying to them, like, is what you're doing right now the right thing to do? Are you wasting your time? Are you ever going to be good enough? Blah, blah, blah. But then perspective that I look at is, I may never be good enough. Doesn't matter. Am I happy doing what I'm doing right now? Yes. Am I relatively injury-free? Yes. Am I keeping on top of my health markers? Yes. I have my blood work done every single month. My resting heart is in check. Do my cardio daily. I don't eat shit. I'm living my life like a monk. The only thing that I do, and again, pick your poison, the only thing that I do that potentially puts risk on my health is taking steroids. That's probably a trade-off that I'm happy to accept for now anyway.
Yeah.
I don't smoke. I don't drink. I don't eat any garbage. There's people out there doing far worse things than I am. The only difference is that society doesn't accept what we do as well as of yet. They probably will in the future when they understand that all of the people that watch on TV that are in sports are juiced up to the gills, but that's a conversation for another day. In 2022, I just got a lot of anxiety around health. And I thought, right, I'll do classic. I love bodybuilding. I don't want to stop. Let's take a healthier approach. But what is a healthier approach? Like, what we do is going to put risk, somewhat of a risk, either way, unless we just do TRT. And another thing to consider is this. We could go out of this house any day and an accident could happen, and that's you done.
Yeah.
So be mindful of that. I think the more we can live in present and not think about the past or the future and just be present with living your day to day, protecting your headspace, staying happy, not trying to think of these scenarios in your head, the better off you'll be. It's normal to have self-doubt. Just try not to sit into it too much. Feel these emotions for what they are, move on, journal if you need to. Sometimes I journal. I like to remind myself of the things that I stand for, my values, why I do this. And it's a nice reminder then to stay on the path that makes you happy. Stay on the path that gives you fulfillment. Nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah, that's great.
And also understand, bodybuilding isn't forever. We are all living on borrowed time. It's not like any other sports. There's only a limited amount of time we'll be able to do this. So understanding that, you should be giving your everything into this whilst you are doing this before it's time to hang up your trunks.
Yeah, definitely. And you said like you're. Do you ever be good enough? Probably no. But what are the standard of being good enough? You know what I get into, yeah? There are no standards. For us, we are never gonna be perfect. I've watching some of my shots I put on Instagram back in the days right now when I am small as fuck and I'm thinking, oh my God, that's looking fucking ginormous, great. I was looking really, really good. But back in the days, I thought like I looked like a shit, like a bag of potatoes.
Yeah.
Like
for me now, being good enough is about self-development, nothing else, nothing more.
Definitely.
Nothing more, nothing less. It's just about being better. 1% better every single day. That's all I care about.
Okay.
That's what it is. That's what being good enough for me now is.
So this is like your purpose.
That's it.
Yeah, great. Okay, so Kuba, do we have like a couple minutes more? Because I would like to briefly ask about some questions. Like we have talked about the PEDs, so we are not gonna dive into more. But I would love to ask you about, first of all, cheat meals, because this is like questions that sometimes from new clients. It's like almost a second question. Do you have some available spots, and also do you like have a weekly cheat meals in your plans or stuff like that? This is like a second question for some. So I would really love to know your approach when it comes to the cheat meals in the off season?
I really reframe it as cheat meals. I don't really frame it as cheat meals, so to speak. For me, I try to teach my clients better nutritional habits. So you can have pretty much almost any food, any time of the day within reason. Key is staying within your calorific intake. If you know you are taking in 4,200 calories per day and that already puts you in a surplus, eating above and beyond that, you are just getting fat.
Yeah.
So, yes, have a cheat meal, take your wife out, but if you are going out and you are eating 2,500, 3,000 calories in one sitting, you're probably not going to have the best results from that. You're going to drive up your body weight pretty rapidly, especially if you are still eating all of your meals on top of this. So for me, and again, some genetic freaks will get away with it, but even then, if these guys scaled things back and they approached nutrition smarter, I would argue they would grow more and stay healthier. Cheat meals are good to go, but how we look at cheat meals needs to change. A cheat meal is not a free-for-all. Eat food that you enjoy within reason, but be smart with your calorific intake. So all I ask is, on a weekly basis, you can have a meal or two if you'd like 2 meals per week. It doesn't really matter. But roughly, try to match your calories for that day. If you are going to a restaurant, make smarter choices. Pick a steak, ask for no oil. Don't have 3 different sides, don't have 3 different desserts. Pick one side, pick one dessert, and half with your partner. That meal alone probably would be 1,000 calories. If you know you have 4,200 calories on your plan, you then reduce the 1,000 calories from your base plan, and you take that into consideration. When you have these meals, you are better off undershooting by 100 calories. If you are in a calorie surplus in the off season and you undershoot by 100 calories, not the end of the world, because then what we can do is raise up your baseline calories when it's needed, or if your body weight starts dropping. If every single week you are having a meal off, and let's say you're eating 4,200 calories per day every single week, on that Sunday you're having a massive meal, and that day takes you to 6,000 calories, you're gaining 3-4 pounds every week from that meal. So you gain 4 pounds at the back of Sunday. By the time Sunday comes around, you're only down a pound. So net gain per week is still 3 pounds. You repeat that process again. Guess what happens then? You're gaining 3 pounds a week with no increase to your food, which means you're probably eating at maintenance all week, or even in a deficit in some cases, if people really eat hard. Then what happens? You overcompensate in that one meal. So you just accumulate more body fat, but then you are leaving yourself in a position where you are under-recovered entire week, under-eating and overeating. So it's almost like a yo-yo effect. Have you ever seen people that try to diet and they just end up skinny and fat? Because what they do is they will over-restrict the calories throughout the week and binge
Many
on
times.
the weekend. Exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same thing with bodybuilders trying to gain muscle. And then what happens then is they go through 20 weeks of that, they get to the end point, they diet again, and they look the same. And then they ask themselves, how did I gain 40 pounds this off-season, but I'm looking the same again? Well, that's probably how. You ate at fucking maintenance or even a deficit, and you just overfed yourself to get that body weight up. Training performance suffered every single week, under-recovered every single week. So I never say no to cheat meals. And what annoys me the most as well is a lot of the smaller clients will look at guys that are like 300 pounds, 200 pounds. They'll see all of these guys eating these fucking massive meals, but it's like, what you are not understanding, this guy's calorie intake on a daily basis is 6,000 calories anyway. He's having a burger, but he's missing 2 meals for it. So his calories for that day are pretty much matched. So he's not really overeating. Bigger you are, more you can get away with it. And that's the sad reality. More of a genetic freak you are, more you can get away with it. The key points is to eat to your needs, not above and beyond, but also not under.
Yeah. And when it comes to the weight fluctuation, I recently, I have a client. I hope that he is not going to be mad that I mentioned him, but he's doing like, he's basically just, I don't know how to say it, but he's trying to convince himself that he doing it right, because the example is he eats like 8,000 calories on one sitting. Then his weight goes up by
Fucking hell.
15 pounds, for example. Yeah. Like, so then he gets back to his diet. So obviously the weight is going down slowly.
Yeah.
So then he eats and explaining that to me, I need to load because my weight was dropping so fast.
Wow.
And I know that people might not understand it, because there is a trend in the US. I've noticed that they are weighing themselves, for example, in the night.
Once a week, just once a week.
Yeah, or once a week, and they see that my weight decreased from the travel, for example. So I need to load the carbs or something like that. They are not understanding thermodynamics and the metabolism itself, that is not working daily. It's not even working weekly. It's working, but in a higher amount of times.
In an off season, there will never be an instance where your carbohydrates are depleted.
Yeah.
For you to actually get depleted, you would need to probably go carbless in an off season for like 2 weeks. Exaggeration, but you probably need to go zero carbs for like 3 to 4 days. So if your body weight fluctuates, it's normal. It doesn't matter. It could be electrolytes, it could be sleep, it could be a little bit more water or less water. There's so many different things that will influence your body weight on a daily basis. This is why I always work off daily body weight readings when and when possible, ideally daily. And then we do not work off a single body weight reading. We work off a weekly average.
Yeah,
and then we take your weekly average as our reference point. Now, with him saying he needed to load, it's just, what he's doing is literally just doing exactly what I've just explained.
Yeah.
And all he's going to do there is, one, he's going to get insulin resistant real fucking fast. And I mean, the single biggest thing to completely trash your insulin resistance is overfeeding in a single meal consistently. Yeah. That's the easiest way to do it. So if you essentially want to make very little progress, get fat, and basically stand still and eat little food all week, do exactly what he's doing. And I promise you, you're going to make very little progress, and just make dieting hard for yourself the next time you actually diet.
Yeah, this is really hard to explain for some, that right now we have even studies that shown that even a single meal over a certain amount of calories might impacted your insulin sensitivity long term.
You can get fat as well. You can gain fat as well if it.
So
you can't gain fat off one meal. I promise you guys, you can.
Yeah,
especially with that guy. If he's eating that much, he's gaining fat every week. I'm telling you.
Okay, so next question is Minicuts. Are you doing it like on a structural base, or do you not use it at all, or maybe you structure it based off needed? For example, Minicuts is a good way, for example, for some to restore the appetite, or maybe like if they have like problems with I don't know, like feeling pumped or anything. I've seen guys using it like for different reasons, but what do you think about Minicuts? And basically, do you structure them, or they are just when needed?
If someone needs a minicut or a pullback, it's because they've already that's all it is. It's just, I will do them, and I will have phases where I pull clients back, but the only time I do that is if they've overate on a holiday, or they're just gaining too much body fat too quickly, or they're gaining too much body weight. But then it wouldn't be a minicut, it'd just be a slight pullback in the calories. Where I think a minicut would be needed is if someone's taking a long time away from stage, but then it wouldn't be a minicut, because I like to do a longer off season. That's the most effective way to build a substantial amount of muscle where it's going to be a visible change. Yeah. You can't do that in 16 weeks. If you want a big visual change, like you wanted, you want to be a super heavyweight, you need a health phase, and you need 26 weeks pushing up minimum, if not longer. Off the back of that, I would always have someone settle for a contest prep. The reason for that is, and in your case, right, if you don't want to compete, we would literally treat that minicut like a mini contest prep. We would do a minimum of 12 weeks of dieting. If we are not competing, the minicut to get you back into a responsive place where we can then get back to a gaining phase for another 20 weeks, you need to be at least 3 to 4 weeks out condition.
Yeah.
So, do I use them? Yes, but if someone needs a mini cut mid-off season, they have overdone it. Like they just couldn't control their eating, and this, all they are doing then is, one, they've probably wasted an opportunity to grow, but two, they are wasting time dieting off the shit that they've gained when they could be spending that time productively growing muscle. So
you see, sorry that I interrupt you, but you see, I see that problem is in the semantics, because for some minicuts means like 4 to 6 days pull out, for example, like 15% of calories just to restore appetite. For some, minicuts are 4 to 6 weeks, like diet phase to restore the body, like insulin sensitivity or something like that, or just improve the visuals. For some, like you just said, minicuts could be even at 12 weeks of that, just some like almost like prep. So it is a semantics problem. I think these days, like cheat meals, it is, for once it's called cheat, but when it's structured, it's not cheat anymore. It is structured to your meal plan. So it is semantics that's ruined the industry for some, I believe.
Every time you diet, every time you get in a calorie deficit, you are not growing muscle tissue to the degree that you could in a calorie surplus. So if you got to that point and you need a mini cut for whatever reason, you've either been overeating or you haven't been patient enough. So for me, again, yes, they work. Yes, they are needed. But if they are needed, that is why they are needed. I would then be like, right, we do this now, we pull back, but we learn from the mistakes and we stop wasting time when we should be growing. That would be my point.
Great. So next question is going to be probably interesting for some, because I know your statement on that, but many people maybe not.
Yeah.
It is about cardio in the off season, because I've saw that your approach is basically reverse to the approaches of many coaches. And I would like to include the steps to that, because you are actually one who've probably used the steps. Like, definitely you are the one who like introduced it for me at the beginning, because you are probably the first guy I saw that like using the step count as a tool to getting yourself in shape, or just staying in shape throughout the whole off seasons and stuff like that. So I would like you to tell us a little bit more about your like whole approach to the cardio and steps in general in the off season.
Motion is lotion, right? Keeping daily activity up, especially small, frequent bouts of steps in and around your meals, will improve your digestion, improve insulin sensitivity, improve nutrition partitioning, where you are able to utilize your food to partition towards recovery as opposed to storage as body fat. In a calorie surplus, I think cardio is the only time that I like to use it, bigger guys especially. In a calorie deficit, I never use cardio. I never needed it myself, and I do not need it with my clients. And voila, we see more muscle retention. They feel better. They don't really feel like they're dieting, because we do leverage steps. A lot of guys that dismiss steps, I mean, it's the dumbest thing I could ever hear, because your steps, especially when you are 270, 260, it's one of the easiest tool to keep and sustain an easy, stress-free calorie deficit. These guys that very much shit on daily steps are the same guys that end up doing an hour's worth of cardio at night and an hour's worth of cardio in the morning. And then they're moaning while they're so tired. But when you look at how much the steps they're doing 2,000 steps per day and then doing 2 hours of cardio. Well, would you rather not just take a 5 to 10 minute walk after every single meal outside in fresh air? How much better would you feel? So it's common sense. It's literally just common sense. But unfortunately, in bodybuilding, bodybuilders are so ego-driven, and they refuse to have an open mind, and they like to just stick to the set ways. I mean, I fucking hate cardio, but in an off-season phase, I do cardio every single day. Some form of moderate pace activity that is standardized. So for me, every single morning, that is a 22 minute walk at 5 kilometers per hour. For me, I'm 5'9". you have to sustain a decent amount of effort to do that. That is also a way for me to maintain good fitness levels. Then after that, I will do a 5-minute walk after meal 1, after meal 2, and then a 5-minute walk after meal 5. This generally lands me between 8 to 10,000 steps every single day. I weighed in 270 pounds this morning. My resting heart rate is 59.
Nice.
So you're telling me that doesn't work? I haven't needed cardio, and I do not need cardio with any of my clients to get peeled inside out. If I was to tell you, David, that you can eat more food, you can diet on more food without cardio, what would you say to me? Is that not like a perfect scenario to be in?
Yeah, that's beautiful scenario.
You want to do that, right? So if you want to do that, all you have to do is just track your steps and maintain activity. Your ability to perform will be better. Nutrition goes in so much easier. Appetite stays higher. So essentially, maintaining a baseline activity level is not only going to keep you leaner, it will improve your health directly, indirectly, improve your ability to sustain a productive off-season, but also improve your ability to have better metabolic flexibility. When it comes to dieting, fat loss will be much easier. Not to mention improve mitochondria function, all these wonderful things. So for me, cardio only in the off-season to sustain health and heart health. The second we get in a deficit, it's all steps, light activity, frequent, spread throughout the day. That is low impact, because my priority for myself and clients is retaining training performance. In order for you to retain training performance, you need to stay fresh, both physically and mentally. So you need to make sure that you leverage the things that are not going to put more stress on your body and drive more fatigue, less fat loss, less training performance, and worse look on stage. Simple as that.
Great. I have 3 more questions just because
we will have to wrap this one up, bro, because I do need to.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you're right now, yeah?
Yeah, I need to eat my pre-workout. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that's shame.
What questions you got?
Insulin, subs, like staples year-round, that we can talk about in a second part. And also GH, are you thinking that more is more? Because you've basically set me up on 12.5 for some, that's crazy. For some, that's little.
We can definitely finish off on this as well. But
great. So I just wanted to summarize it. Thank you guys for staying with us to the end of this podcast, and thank you, Kuba, for taking the time and for showing us all the process as beautiful as it was. And obviously, if anyone wants to hit or find you, all of your social media, all of your codes, and everything that people need to know about you is going to be in the description box down below. So thank you once again. And for you guys out there who are wanted to support Kuba for all of this knowledge that he shared with us today, you can find everything in the description down below. So thank you so much.
Dla polskich widzów dziękuję bardzo. Przepraszam, że po polsku za dużo nie robię kontentu, ale niestety po polsku po prostu nie umie się tak wysłowić, żeby to wszystko miało sens. Także przepraszam bardzo i mam nadzieję, że to było ok. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I'm off out now. I've got clients waiting at the gym and I need to eat my pre-workout meal. So guys, thank you. And listen, I'm more than happy to cover some of these questions on the next one, or we can do like a part 2 and you can mash it all up together, and make sure you collab with me as well. Right, guys.
Great. Bye.